Yes.
34 days.
34 days, Ronnie. Yes. Oh, man.
34 days.
And they can't come soon enough. They really
What
can't. Let's
was
get their
that
quote.
last
Oh,
night?
my God. That was a mess. That was an absolute mess.
There are no words.
No, you
really
cannot
are
write something
no
that...
words.
Ronnie, I've spent a long period of my life writing slapstick comedy. That would just come off as completely unrealistic. That made... There was no part of that was not jaw-dropping and, frankly, just offensive, no matter who you are supporting in this election.
So, of course, we're talking about last night's debate between Donald Trump and Biden. And I will say, I thought there were no winners, and the American public, we are all losers today, waking up, watching that debate. Did you learn anything?
No.
We learned absolutely nothing.
I learned that Chris Wallace has a very soft voice, and that's about it.
He has patience.
Yeah,
I would have
way too
said,
much.
we're going to a break and we're done.
No, I would have a basket of tomatoes next to me and start chucking them at the two guys. Jeez,
Yeah, if they want to act
rough.
like that, right?
Exactly. I'm going to boo you off the stage.
Which is really sad because, this is such a great avenue, and they had the platform to be able to educate and inform the American public, and I felt like I was in a kindergarten class, and people were just screaming back and forth, and I learned nothing last night. I will say I didn't sit through the whole thing. I didn't need to.
Yeah, I watched the first maybe half hour intently, and then once it just completely spiraled into chaos, that's where my attention span kind of waned a little bit because, like you said, we weren't learning anything. There was nothing productive going on from either candidate. They were both talking over each other. They were both completely ignoring the questions that Chris Wallace was speaking. It was a shouting match between two people that clearly don't like each other and clearly just want to win the election solely based on how bad can make the other person look.
Well, we all know that Trump is not a typical president in any sense of the word. I'm really curious, though, just when he said that they have been practicing for the debate, was that part of the practice? Was that an intent of his going into it? Because one thing people are doing today, we're talking about it. We are talking about it, good or bad. Everyone is talking about the debate last night. So, in a way, was he smart, and was that pre-planned so that we would be talking about it?
From my perspective, I think that both campaigns went into the debate last night with a specific strategy, and they executed those strategies. The difference is, I don't think they did it in the way that they ultimately wanted to do it and were practicing to do it. I think Donald Trump's campaign, their goal last night was to rattle Joe Biden. And part of the strategy may have been interrupt him, step on him a little bit, be aggressive with him and throw him off his planned talking points a little bit and make him kind of ad lib. I think that was the strategy of Donald Trump's campaign. And to an extent, yes, he made him do that. On the other side of the coin, Joe Biden's strategy coming into this debate seemed to have been the calmer person, be the adult in the room, and try to calmly explain why what is happening from the other candidate, what is being said by the other candidate, is unproductive. I think both candidates did a terrible job of executing those strategies, not effectively, but professionally.
34 days.
34 days, Ronnie. 34
days.
My God.
Okay, enough on the debate because I'm
Please.
sure everyone is going to be hearing about it all day, all night. It's on pretty much every channel right now. Everyone is talking about it. We are going to move on to some other things. The governor extending the state of emergency here in the state of Michigan. Tuesday, she extended the state of emergency through October 27th as officials continue to voice concern about the threat of COVID-19. The emergency declaration has been in place since March 10th. That's when Michigan reported its first cases of COVID-19. The emergency declaration, as we all know by now, is what gives the governor the ability to take unilateral actions to combat the virus, such as shuttering businesses, suspending portions of the state laws requiring people to wear masks. This will get extended beyond October 27th as well.
Yeah, it's far from over, and to be quite honest, at this point, I think it's more useful to just tell us when it is over. Because we know it's going to continue on. COVID-19 is obviously still an issue in our community and in the state of Michigan and all throughout the country and the world. So that shouldn't be any surprise to anybody. It's a formality at this point so that the governor can continue to make the decisions that she's making in a way that is, as of now, allowed under the law.
And that key phrase, as of now. So we'll see if this law actually gets changed, because there are movements abound to try to make that happen. Mm-hmm. And we'll see if that actually gets done. And if it does, I doubt that it's actually going to have much of an impact on COVID-19 and what we're going through right now. Here's some good news, though, coming out of the state of Michigan. Thousands of people, the essential workers, they've already applied for the free tuition program. In just over 2 weeks since the program launched, more than 60,000 Michiganders have applied for the program to cover college tuition costs for essential workers. The new Futures for Frontliners program provides a tuition-free pathway to college or a technical certificate to essential workers who do not have a college degree, including those who lack a high school diploma. The state is going to be hosting a series of online meetings in October to answer questions about the program and to explain how essential workers can take advantage of it. They were there for us in the beginning stages of this pandemic, and this is one way the state is trying to honor them by helping them take the next step in maybe their careers, especially in some of those skilled trades areas. We really there's such a shortage here in the state of Michigan. Yeah,
this opportunity is great for these essential workers to advance their careers or to shift careers into a trajectory where there is great need in the state, and to know that people are able to cut through what they need to cut through to get to the point of applying. That's very good news. It's still early on in the process. We actually talked recently with someone that is partially responsible for that program, and we have more information on that on civiccentertv.com/megacast, including a clip that tells you all 3 steps of the process that you need to go through in order to apply if you're eligible.
Right. Take advantage of it while we have it. I love this next story, and I put it in for a reason. Dogs are being trained to detect COVID-19. The dogs have been trained to sniff out everything from drugs to bed bugs, and now one Michigan couple is using them to detect COVID-19. Lori and Jack Griggs with Paradise Dog Training began retraining 2 of their dogs by using saliva samples from people they knew who had the virus. And they say the dogs have a 90% accuracy rate in detecting COVID-19 in individuals. I will say I'd much rather have dogs detect it than having that swab put all the way up my nose.
Definitely seems like a much more comfortable idea. I mean, as much as I'd rather not have random animals sniffing me down, I'd much rather have that than have not a blunt object, but the closest thing to it shoved up my nose.
So when I did actually see this story, I went online, and some of the airports in Europe are already using dogs for this purpose. And I know some firefighters, they have been using some of the dogs to help them detect cancer. And the firefighters, it's, early measures. And because of their sniffing abilities, and I think they say dogs have so many hundreds of times their nose is so much stronger than humans, and they really are amazing what they can do. And so 2 dogs right now being trained here in the state. I would imagine a few more are going to be trained as well going forward. And Paradise Dog Training is saying that a couple nursing homes have already reached out to them saying that they want to use their dogs. I like it.
Finding more ways to detect COVID-19 as the medical community continues to work on more accurate, rapid testing that can be distributed widely. And as we continue to go further and further into this pandemic, waiting for a solution, anything that we can have that can help detect COVID-19, help us get ahead of it as quickly as possible, and maybe detect outbreaks in the early stages or before they happen, obviously that's going to be a huge plus for all communities in our local area and throughout the world.
Right. I can barely get my dog to get trained to sit.
Yeah.
She's getting so much better. We have a rescue dog. She's getting so much better.
Make her a COVID dog.
Right. Yeah. Well, if I could get them to train her, let me tell you, I would. I will say today's show is kind of going to the dogs. We're excited. We have a lot ahead here on the Oakland County Megacast for you. Coming up, we are going to be speaking with Kristina Rinaldi. She's the executive director of the Detroit Dog Rescue. I've known her for several years doing amazing things for the dogs here in Metro Detroit, in the city of Detroit. But first, before we get to Kristina, we're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keefe, and you're listening to us and watching us on CivicCenterTV.com.
And I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
or blue.
But one thing we can all agree on to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for tuning in to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keefe here in our studios at Civic Center TV and 89.3 in the greater West Bloomfield area. For those of you that may be tuning in for the first time, just so you know, the Megacast pretty much grew out of this pandemic, and it was a way for us to share with all of you out there the latest information, because even 6 months into the pandemic, things are changing each and every day. So we are every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. Tyler and I are here in the studios working to bring you the latest information, but also checking in with so many people throughout the area to see how they are actually surviving during this pandemic. And as more and more things start to reopen, how are they going forward? And our first guest that we are going to bring in this morning here on the Megacast is Kristina Rinaldi. She is the executive director for the Detroit Dog Rescue. This lady is your Wonder Woman, Kristina. How are you this morning?
You are. I'm so happy to be talking to you. You have no idea. It's so good to talk to you and so good to be here today. And I can't thank you enough for always spreading the word about Detroit Dog Rescue. You are one of our biggest champions, so thank you.
And, I forgot to wear my sweatshirt today. My husband bought me one last year, and I was like, I forgot to wear my sweatshirt.
No. That just means we have to get you more gear. Don't worry.
Exactly. So, Kristina, I'm sure there are not very many people who aren't familiar with DDR, but for those that aren't, explain a little bit about your rescue and what makes you so different.
Absolutely. So for the last 10 years, Detroit Dog Rescue has been the first no-kill shelter in the city of Detroit. And what that means is we are an actual shelter. We have a brick and mortar building. We're working on a second one right now. But what that means is we really seek out alternatives to euthanasia, whether that's rehabilitation, whether that's community outreach and keeping pets in their home. We really do everything we can to keep pets out of shelters, but also to avoid euthanizing dogs in the city of Detroit. Now, we assist Detroit Police, the Detroit Fire Department, and of course, Detroit Animal Care and Control. And we've even worked with the mayor of Detroit to make things better for pets and their people.
Kristina Rinaldi with us on the Oakland County Megacast, joining us throughout the local area today on a variety of TV and radio stations, as well as the Facebook page of the West Bloomfield School District, and we thank them for joining us on today's program. So, Kristina, over the course of the pandemic, a lot of community organizations, for humans and for animals, have faced a variety of challenges. The dogs and puppies in our local area that don't have homes still have those same issues with not being in their forever homes during the pandemic as they do before and after one. How have you addressed those challenges over the course of the pandemic? And what are some of the ones that maybe people in the general public like Ronnie and I maybe aren't even thinking about with regards to these animals?
That's a great question. So at the start of the pandemic, actually, a lot of people were interested in bringing a dog or a puppy into their home, whether it was fostering or adopting. I remember the first 2 days of the governor's orders to shut down, we received 300 applications to foster and adopt at Detroit Dog Rescue. So we were able to get a lot of dogs into homes. And what we did is we created this emergency relief plan with Detroit Animal Care and Control to get more dogs out of their municipal shelter where they might be in danger of being euthanized. And they've done a great job. So by working together, we really mitigated euthanizing a lot of pets and brought a lot more animals into our shelter. But it goes farther than that. As we've progressed over the last 6 or 8 months, we're seeing, unfortunately, people have a loss of income. People's lives have completely changed. A lot of people, I know, especially in Oakland County, in our area, may have adjusted their work schedules to teach their children, or myself included. And what we saw, again, was a loss of income. We had really great pet owners in Detroit, people who loved their dogs, but they just needed 3 or 6 months worth of dog food to get by. I think we take for granted how much really dog food and pet products and pet care cost. So we help to mitigate that cost by providing our outreach families with food or vaccinations, pet licenses, things like that, to really relieve some of that stress of owning a pet. It's something that we did when Detroit Dog Rescue started during the foreclosure crisis. We started in some of the worst economic times in Detroit. And what we did is we really worked with families, and we really worked with people who loved their pets so they could keep their pets in their home. And I think that's important to remember. Nobody wants to euthanize animals in the shelter. And one of the ways to avoid that is by realizing that sometimes first home is best home. If you have a dog and you're a great pet owner and your dog loves you and you love your dog, the last thing I want to do is take your pet out of your home and put it in my shelter. Now, if I need to help raise funds to provide your dog with medical care or food, but you're providing love and attention to your dog, why would I ever want that dog in the shelter? And what I love is we get to keep up with these outreach families. So throughout the pandemic, we were able to check in on everybody and really help keep pets with their people. And that's so important to me and the entire crew at Detroit Dog Rescue.
So, Kristina, I would imagine that, like you said, you had a lot of people who came and got the dogs, and maybe they were the foster parents who then became a foster fail like we did with Trixie.
Right.
6 months later, the dog is still with us, and now she's a part of our family. But when you do foster or you do get a dog from a shelter, sometimes they come with behavioral issues that can make keeping that dog challenging. What advice do you give to some parents, or new pet parents, I should say, when they do get one of these dogs, and how can they train them so that they do stay in that home and they don't end up back at the shelter?
I love that question. When Detroit Dog Rescue started, most of us were new to this. We had volunteered with animals, but we were new to this. And what I did is I really immersed myself in trainers from Michigan State, certified trainers, veterinarians, to see what would be the best outcome for these pets. And what I determined is not only did Detroit Dog Rescue have the responsibility of rescuing these dogs, I needed to create an entire training department at Detroit Dog Rescue that not only works with the dogs that are in the shelter, but works with our fosters. So at Detroit Dog Rescue, we provide the medical care, we provide the food for our fosters, but I also have trainers if we're having a potty issue or a fear issue with the dog. Our trainers will go out to the house and help. Now, not everybody offers that, understandably, and it can be challenging to bring a new pet in your home. And what I always recommend is look up, and we have resources on our website, DetroitDogRescue.com, enrichment. I always stress giving your pet enrichment. A lot of us are home. We're on our computers, just like I am now. We have that foster dog or that adopted dog running around, wanting our attention. It's amazing what a Kong or a Frisbee filled with peanut butter, or what we call enrichment boxes, which are cardboard boxes filled with fun things. And if you're friends with me on Facebook, you'll see I post a lot of these ideas. Everybody thinks your dog needs to get out for a 6-mile walk, when really they need their brains worked. I always equate it to, are you more tired when you go for a 3-mile walk, or are you more tired if I gave you 1,000 math problems you had to figure out? So really using your dog's brain, and maybe being guided by a force-free certified trainer, they're called CPDT trainers, is always a good idea. And we have a ton of these resources at DetroitDogRescue.com. And what we even decided, since there are so many new fosters and new adopters during the pandemic, we're going to be creating a lot of YouTube videos and things like that we'll be sharing through our social media at Detroit Dog Rescue to help, again, keep pets in their home.
Yeah, the YouTube videos and the gentle leader have saved us, because we've never had a big dog before. We always had Cocker Spaniels. So then we get this. We've decided we're making Trixie a designer dog. We think
I love her.
She's a mutt, but we're like, they think she's a Schnauzer lab, which is interesting, and she's 65 pounds. So we're like, she's a Schnauzador. And so instead of a doodle, she's a Schnauzador. And
a Schnauzador, I mean, that's perfect. And her fall pictures are making my life on the regular on social media. So she's adorable.
Yeah, Trixie has her own Twitter page too. It's 8-Legged Trio, if anyone wants to follow her on Twitter. But I will say, one of the things I know that the last time we were at Union Lake, we took her for her training, and I saw your DDR band there, so I know you guys go there as well. Love the staff at Union Lake. They're amazing. But one of the things that we experienced, and I'm wondering if this is happening to other people, is during the pandemic, you still can't go in to the vet with your pet. And so when she had to go in for her shots, she became aggressive, and they had to muzzle her. And ever since then, we've been having problems with her because of that fear factor. And there's still no discussion as to when we're going to start being able to go into the vets with our pets. But are you having those experiences as well with some of your shelter dogs that you're taking there?
Absolutely. We are at Detroit Dog Rescue. There's very few of us that are allowed to go in, part of our medical team at Detroit Dog Rescue. Like you said, we use Union Lake and Greenfield Animal Hospital, and they do allow us to go in with some of our dogs. But I have had friends call me, adopters call me, and fosters call me with that same issue. So that is a very valid issue. And we're going through a really hard time where vets don't have all the answers, vet techs don't have all the answers, but we're doing the best we can to keep everybody safe. My best advice is to try going forward to make positive associations with your dog and the veterinarian. Even, this sounds silly and crazy, if you have some extra time, putting your dog in the car and driving to your veterinarian's parking lot, like you're getting ready to go to the vet, and then giving them some cut up chicken in the parking lot, even taking them out of the car, walking them around the building, but giving them chicken. So to dogs, chicken and hot dogs, that's like $100 bill to them. And I equate it to, like, if you were scared of spiders and every time you saw a spider, I gave you $100, you would be like, okay, spiders aren't so bad after a while. So that chicken is kind of like your dog's $100. So if you can bring them to the vet for now and make positive associations with the place, that might, at least in the outside perimeter, that might make things a little bit easier. I always say muzzling is not a bad thing anytime you are taking your dog to the vet. Muzzles seem to have gotten a bad rap, but I 100% would rather see a dog in a muzzle than a dog be potentially dangerous and be put in a difficult situation. And muzzles are starting to be welcomed by the community more. I've even seen this great thing called the Muzzle Project, where people will buy like a basket muzzle and they'll wrap it with like duct tape, comes in all kinds of patterns now. And they'll intricately wrap it with like tie-dye or sparkles to make it look less. I think when we see a dog in a muzzle, we get very fearful, but it makes it look less intimidating and it's really fun. But it's so hard to let our dogs go. It's like letting our child go to the doctor by itself and you can't be there to comfort them. I think that's been one of the hardest things during the pandemic, and hopefully you work with a vet team that you trust. But we have seen that with some of the dogs, and it's the harder part of the pandemic, definitely. I'm there with you.
Kristina Rinaldi with us. She's the executive director of the Detroit Dog Rescue, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. So you talked about earlier that in the early portions of the pandemic, there was a rush to adopt pets as people were at home and had some time to acclimate these animals to their homes. Now that we're a little bit calmer in the pandemic and maybe there's not as much of a rush now, has the process changed at all as a result of the pandemic or because of the circumstances of the pandemic in terms of going through that adoption process and meeting with Detroit Dog Rescue and meeting with these animals so that you can know if the personalities of the potential pet owners and these animals are compatible?
Another just really great question. We knew when the pandemic hit that there were a lot of dogs in our shelter and a lot of dogs in the municipal shelter in Detroit that needed to get out. And we knew that we had to get creative and we needed to pivot our processes a little bit. And what that included is we came up with the fantastic idea of why can't we do virtual adoption? So at Detroit Dog Rescue, we do a home check, we do animal introductions before the dog is adopted, possibly do a sleepover to make sure the dog is a right fit for the family and the family is a right fit for the dog. So what we had to switch to was virtual adoption. And what that means is we had to introduce people to the dogs via whether it was FaceTiming or Zoom, and then that person would take their phone around and we would actually do a home check, make sure the fence was the right height. We would talk to a landlord if a landlord needed to be involved and make sure it was a right fit for the dog. And then we actually created a leash system in the very beginning of the pandemic where we didn't have to touch the same leashes. We had very little information about coronavirus at the time. Now we know it's spread more through respiratory than touching items, but we still were very careful and we still were able to get just dozens and dozens of dogs into homes. But, you know, I think that's a part of dog rescue. I think that's a part of any business is you're going to have unexpected challenges and you're just going to have to pivot your processes. That's how I always put it. But we did have to change a lot. We still are doing virtual adoptions. We are not holding any on-site adoption events at any pet stores or anything like that. I will say October 1st through October 4th, we are working with the Bissell Pet Foundation. They are paying all of the adoption fees. So if you are interested, check out our dogs at DetroitDogRescue.com. You can fill out an application today. We'll call you and we'll start the process so you can have your adoption fee waived.
You do so much great work with so many other organizations as well. You are feisty and you are fearless and you are such a champion for the dogs of Detroit. how are things going on the donation side? Because during the pandemic, you do have a lot of people who don't have the extra money that maybe they had at one time, or even the corporations that previously would maybe donate. What is that looking like for DDR on the donation front?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. Detroit Dog Rescue is always there to help everybody else. Like you said, we help other organizations, we help people in the community. And what we're seeing now is people aren't sure about their own financial future. And we have seen a decline in donations and gifts at Detroit Dog Rescue, which is very hard because we're still trying to build a second facility on the west side of Detroit that will allow us more space. But our operations really relies on public gifts. We get a few grants, and those are fantastic. And the Bissell Pet Foundation has paid for all of our spay and neuters this year. But we still, we have 100 dogs at any given time. They all need breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We have training and cleaning supplies and the electric bill and the water bill. I mean, you can imagine what these things cost when you're dealing with just hundreds of dogs. And then not to mention the medical costs are tens of thousands of dollars per month. Detroit Dog Rescue sees the worst of the worst. This isn't a scenario where dogs come in on Friday and they're adopted by Sunday. We're getting dogs from Detroit police that have been shot in raids. Firefighters have found dogs with carbon monoxide poisoning. So a lot of different scenarios that require a lot of medical attention. So, this year is rough. We are seeing a decline in donations. If anybody wants to help, they can go to DetroitDogRescue.com and please donate. If you can, become a reoccurring donor each month so we know what we're working with each month. And a lot of times people will say, I can only give $5. And I always say $5 feeds a shelter dog for an entire week. And it truly does. So $5 is so much to a dog at Detroit Dog Rescue.
So maybe go ahead and skip your Starbucks for the day and give that money instead to DDR. Do you take donations as well? Like if someone has a pet that maybe passed away and they have some of their bedding or their clothing, I'm thinking we have all these Halloween costumes that were Katie's.
Yes,
they're not going to fit Trixie any longer. So we have so much from our other pets. Like, do you take those donations as well?
We absolutely do. We have right now, we had to close some of our donation locations because of the pandemic, but right now we have a donation location in Walled Lake, Troy, and Berkeley, Michigan, where you can bring your supplies to donate and to drop off. And we also have an Amazon wish list on our website as well of supplies that we need. But we absolutely will take old collars, leashes, Halloween costumes. We actually use them in photo shoots and get dogs adopted. So, we'll take just about anything and utilize it.
Kristina Rinaldi with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. Just a couple more minutes with you. I have to ask you, beside DDR, you're also a mom with 2 kids. How are you dealing with all of this? Just juggling everything has to be stressful.
Yeah, it's a really stressful time. Like any mom out there, figuring out the online schooling and then getting dogs adopted. But I'm really grateful that I get to go to work every single day and see dogs and be with dogs and just meet the most incredible people. And I will say, I do a lot of interviews and I get a lot of credit, but I have an amazing team that has stepped up, that has rearranged their hours, that has rearranged their lives. Every time we had a protocol change during COVID, anything we had to do, this team really stepped up, from our kennel attendants to our trainers, our adoption coordinators. So I know that I'm grateful to work with these people every day. Not once did anyone say that they weren't coming in, that they were too scared. Everybody really went into rescue mode and knew that this is our job and this is what we're here to do. And we've been going for 6 or 8 months strong here and doing whatever we have to do to get the dogs of Detroit adopted. But working with incredible people, working with incredible dogs, it makes it a lot easier.
How do you handle the emotional toll? Because as you said, some of these dogs are in really bad shape when they come in. It has to break your heart sometimes. Are there days that you just break down in tears and say, I can't do this again?
Absolutely. I don't think I would be human if I did, but I have this saying, I allow myself every once in a while to cry in the shower, and that's it. Once I get out of the shower, this is what I was truly meant to do. I love it. I've been doing it for 10 years, and I equate it to, kind of like a trauma surgeon. When they go into that trauma bay and it's time for them to do surgery and save a life, then, you kind of got to mask up, and no pun intended, and go for it and do it. It's the same thing when I arrive on the scene with Detroit Police or the Detroit Fire Department, or I go into Detroit Animal Care and Control. We have a job to do. But what makes it easier for me is, maybe that trauma surgeon doesn't know the outcome a few years down the line. I will say on my social media, I'm friends with the majority of the adopters that adopt our dogs. I see them grow up or go through life and, acclimate to their family and what happy lives they have. So, and I'm talking, seeing the worst of the worst cases. Like I said, dogs that have been shot or burned or, fighting dogs. And we turn their lives around, and to be able to see what they mean to another family, it makes it so much easier to go in during the critical time and rescue these dogs.
Rescue dogs, I feel like, are the best dogs, and they know it. They definitely know when they've been rescued. Kristina, quickly before we let you go, what is on the top of your donation wish list that you need right now, and how can people donate or find out more about DDR?
Absolutely. We are in dire need of puppy food, paper towel, and bleach. So we took in a lot of pregnant stray mothers, and they have given birth recently. We have a lot of puppies in foster that are getting ready to find their homes, but we really need puppy food. And you can find all of our listed items at DetroitDogRescue.com. But anytime you can buy a dog or a puppy dinner, it's greatly appreciated.
I love puppy kisses. I want puppy kisses. They always have that puppy breath. Tyler's looking at me like I'm a wackadoodle over here.
No way.
Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Everyone, Kristina Rinaldi with the Detroit Dog Rescue. Go on, check them out, donate if you can, and help a little puppy and help a little dog. Kristina, thank you so much. Feisty, fearless Kristina, that's how I know you. By the way, people didn't know this. Kristina used to also be a rapper. So, do you want to rap for us before we let you go?
We will do that at another time. I'm actually running into a meeting, but we'll do a whole nother segment on talent in the area, which you will have to be part of that segment.
Well, have a happy day. We appreciate your time here on the Oakland County Megacast. Tyler and I are going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we are going to be heading to the library.
Kristina,
this is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards. Back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart. Keep wearing a mask in public. And if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus. Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keith here in our Civic Center TV studios. You can catch us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon on civiccentertv.com, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Or if you do have cable, we want to say thank you because you help support programs such as this. You can catch us on Channel 15 if you are on Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T, or if you're out driving around, tune in to 89.3 WBLD or 88.1 WBFH. We are pretty much everywhere. And today we are also on the Facebook page of the West Bloomfield School District. We want to say thank you to them. I'm excited to bring in our next guest. One of my absolute favorite places is the Baldwin Public Library. Jeff Jimison joining us right now on the Oakland County Megacast. But Jim, it doesn't look like you're in the library.
I am in the library. I am in the Idea Lab.
Oh, well, you have a lot of tools back behind you.
We sure do. That's the idea. We try to be as full service a makerspace as possible. So as soon as we identify that someone needs a particular tool or a piece of equipment, we acquire it.
So give us a rundown. What's a day look like for you?
Well, these days it's a little different. Prior to our exciting pandemic times, we would open our doors to the public. People could make appointments to use any of our large pieces of equipment. Very popular were the laser cutter, the embroidery machine, the die cutter. You can see the heat press above me right there. People would make t-shirts and things like that. Up there is the sublimation printer. People would come in, they would use this equipment to work on their own projects. We would also offer classes that would teach groups of people how to use the various equipment and the software that's associated with the equipment. And we would do special programs wherein people could come in and make exciting things together, more elaborate than what they might generally make on their own, like a pair of hi-fi speakers or a musical keyboard or different things like that. Model rocketry was one that we did that was super popular, where from start to finish you make a model rocket here in the lab out of 3D printed and laser cut parts. Then we go outside and we shoot it off in the nearby park. Post-pandemic, now that we're in this time where things are a little different, the lab is a pretty small space. You're only seeing a little bit of it here, but it doesn't extend very far in any direction beyond the field of view. And so the public, unfortunately, can't come into the lab anymore because it's not possible to maintain adequate social distancing in this small space. So we're doing things a little differently. We're still offering a number of remote services. Our 3D printing service is very popular. People will send us their digital 3D models, and we'll use our large bank of 3D printers to print their models, and then they can come pick those up via our curbside pickup service. So everything's very hands-off. And starting very soon, we're going to be taking work requests from patrons like they used to be able to come into the lab and use the equipment themselves. Now we will be taking their jobs and doing some work for them. So if someone needs something laser cut or engraved or embroidered, or if they need something made with the die cutter, anything like that, we'll be to a certain extent taking some jobs and enabling access to the end product, basically.
Jeff, you definitely have one of the coolest jobs. Are you videotaping some of these procedures so that you can share with people how it's actually being done since they can't do it themselves?
Yeah, yep. We in the past few weeks, we've been doing a series of live broadcasts through Instagram Live. We call it Idea Lab Live. And so, it's sort of a little window that opens into the Idea Lab so that people can see some of the special projects that we've been working on in here and getting a little more in depth into some of the more technical aspects of the lab. We've been rebuilding a 3D printer live, which is interesting. It sort of shows you from the bottom up how these machines work and how they cooperate with their software. And we've also been doing what I call virtual lab hours, where people used to have the opportunity to come in and visit the lab and talk to me and ask questions about their projects and sort of get a sense of direction creatively for what they're going to be working on. Since they can't do that in person, we've been opening up the doors virtually. So at designated times, people can chat with me, and I'm also available in a number of other ways to be contacted, by email, by phone, by Zoom. we try to reproduce the experience of being in the lab as much as possible.
Jeff Jimison with us. He is the supervisor of the Idea Lab over at the Baldwin Public Library, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. And Jeff, the last time we spoke, it was in the thick of the early portions of the pandemic, and the Idea Lab was doing a lot of work providing PPE to those on the front lines. Has that operation continued, or has that been weaned back to a moderate level at this point?
It has tapered off a little bit, but we are still in production. At the time when we last spoke, we were producing hundreds of face shields per day. The need has diminished somewhat now that supply lines for first responders and medical professionals have opened back up. They're able to get proper PPE a little bit better than they were through the usual channels. But there are still areas of need, both in the community and in the nation at large, that we're trying to help fulfill. We have small requests coming in from local people. We'll just donate whatever quantity of face shields is necessary. And then we have larger groups that we're focusing on, struggling areas, fire departments. There's a reservation in Arizona that just placed a request for 1,000 face shields. So we still have a couple of 3D printers that are specifically dedicated just to producing PPE and face shield parts.
Jeff, we've all had to change the way we live and change the way we work and we operate during this pandemic. I wonder, for you and your team, what have you changed that you think is a positive that may stick around post-pandemic?
One of the things that I have been working to establish since the lab unfortunately had to close its doors to the public is the idea of a circulating tool library, where a lot of the equipment that you see behind me and other pieces of equipment in the lab, working to get that so that patrons can come in and check those out, just like you would check out a book or a DVD. If you need a Dremel, or if you need a sewing machine, you can check those items out, take them home, use them, and bring them back when you're done. And while we're still in the process of setting that up, turns out it's kind of a task to set that up, but when it rolls out, I have a feeling it's going to be very popular, and I'm certain that it will stick around even when things clear up, fingers crossed.
Yeah, because some of this stuff is expensive. So if you just want to make one mask, you don't want to go out and buy an entire sewing machine. So this would be such a great asset for the community. So I hope that does work and that gets up and off the ground. What are some of the things that you are making there that you didn't make before besides the PPE?
In terms of the requests that we're getting from patrons for things to be printed, a lot of it is much the same, with perhaps a slightly larger focus on user-made items. Prior to the pandemic, it was really common for people to go online, scour the internet for a 3D model that they were interested in, and send it to us for printing. Now I think I find a slight increase in items that patrons have modeled themselves using software. And I think that's probably because people have a little bit more time to tinker around in software, to create their own models, possibly even to learn more elaborate software while they're at home, spending more time indoors. So I have noticed a slight uptick in things that people have designed themselves, which is pretty interesting. One of our patrons submitted a request for something that I find just fascinating. It's a chess clock. Maybe you play chess and there's the little clock that each player will tap a button to signify the end of their turn so that the clock can keep track of the timer. We have a patron who designed an app for a cell phone, and depending on which way the phone is tilted, the clock time will reset for one player or another, and 3D printed a sort of wedge shape that the phone slots into. So you tilt the wedge and it tips over to one side, and that means it's this player's turn. And you tilt the wedge to the other side, and that means it's this player's turn. And he designed that completely from scratch, and we got to see multiple revisions, of his prints. and it's fascinating to see how patrons will concoct these inventions, and we get to see the entire production process and help with it, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, people are so creative. They're definitely using some of this downtime to learn new skills and come up with some new things. And I will say, so how does that work? If I send it to you, then is there a price associated with it?
Well, at the moment, no. No. We are offering 3D prints for free for now. Prior to the pandemic, we were charging a modest cost of $1 per print request plus 3 cents per gram of weight. But sort of like setting up the circulating tool library, it's proven to be a little more challenging to come up with a way to accept payments remotely for our lab users. So because we're not able to accept payments, we're just providing the service for free for now. That may change at some point, but for now, things are free.
Jeff Jimison is the supervisor at the Idea Lab at the Baldwin Public Library, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. An interesting new venture at the Baldwin Public Library. You've started producing a podcast with the Baldwin Public Library. Can you talk to us a little bit about what people can expect when they listen to that podcast?
Sure. That was one of the things we did with our own downtime. Prior to the reopening of the library, when we were all working from home, several of my coworkers approached me with this idea of creating a podcast. And it was pretty loose, a free-form idea. But I have some media production experience, and that's sort of what I do. I make things, digital things, physical things. And so they said, hey, you seem like the right person to help with that. So we're just about to release episode 2 on October 1st, and they'll be coming out every month. And the format, we start with segments from librarians discussing and reviewing different materials that are available to patrons at the library. In our first episode, we talk about a service called Creative Bug, which is a really great website where you can learn about how to perform different artistic disciplines, how to make different projects. It's sort of like a list of almost like recipes, but for making things. And it's a fantastic resource. And so we discuss, their watercolor painting classes. We discuss their paper craft classes, things like that. And then in the latter half of every episode, we interview someone who's important to us or important to the community. In episode 1, we interview Jody Lynn of Jody Lynn Doodles, who's a local artist, and we discuss her workflow and her inspiration. In episode 2, we discuss one of our regular users here at the Idea Lab, Sandhya Garg, who's a fashion designer and was a contestant on Project Runway. So we get a little insight into how her process for fashion design works and how she got her start, things like that. So every episode's a little different.
Those are so awesome. Jeff, where can people find them?
Anywhere that good podcasts can be downloaded. Spotify, Apple Music, Google, pretty much anywhere.
And what's the name of the podcast again?
It's called Beeple People, BPL.
Okay. How'd you guys come up with that name?
That's a good question. It's one of those things that just sort of emerged. It bubbled up from the ether, sort of like simultaneous. I think it was a humorous abbreviation used in an email, and it sort of stuck.
There you go. Jeff, you guys are doing amazing things and such creative things over there at the library. What do you want people to know that maybe aren't members of the library, or they live in the area, but they haven't been to a library in years? What do you want them to know about some of the things that you do offer? Because libraries are a lot different today than they were when we were kids.
Very much so, yes.
No Dewey Decimal System to go through the card catalog, right?
Right. Now it's like Google. You just search for what you want on our website, and you get all the results right there in front of you. Nobody needs decimals anymore. Yeah, I would say one of the coolest things about the Idea Lab is the fact that we are open to the public. The lab itself and the services we offer there is no requirement for residency. You don't have to have a library card if you want to get something 3D printed, if you want to get something laser cut. Anyone from anywhere can use the services that the Idea Lab provides. And it's this sort of public entity that exists inside of Baldwin Public Library. So I think everyone should be aware that this is, you don't have to feel like, oh, I live in Troy, or, I'm from East Point and I'm not sure, can I get something 3D printed? Well, yes, you can. The only prerequisite is that you are a human being and you can use the Idea Lab.
That is so awesome. Jeff Jemison with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. Just a couple more minutes with you before we wrap up. How has it been for you to be back in the building, because it was closed down for so long? Are you able to see some of your coworkers, and how is that going for you? Do you enjoy being back in the building?
I do. And I think for me, it's particularly easy to be here because, the lab is closed, so I'm fairly isolated. I'm in this room is basically a cube and I'm in my little cube. And so this is my domain, and I venture forth and I, wear my mask when I go out, and I can chat with coworkers, and it is nice to be able to see people in person and, talk to my friends here at the library. I do miss the interactions with patrons that were a huge part of my day-to-day, and I definitely, I really enjoyed being able to talk with them and work with them directly and see their projects and watch their creativity unfold firsthand. But the analogs to that, the virtual analogs, are a decent substitute. I have a lot of time in here now to keep things organized and work on our internal projects, and it's been a fine transition. I do look forward to returning to normal.
Yeah, a lot of tinkering, I would imagine, going on there in your lab. Virtually, though, do you feel like, are you finding that you're able to reach so many more people virtually than if people were, coming just in person?
Yeah. This is a small space, and prior to COVID, when we would do a program, if it was taking place in this room, the maximum amount of people we can get in here comfortably is like 6, maybe 8. If everyone wants to stand shoulder to shoulder. Now that we're doing more virtual programs, like when I will do a broadcast of Idea Lab Live on Instagram Live, there'll be 150 people who watch throughout the course of the evening. And I would never have a turnout like that if it weren't for the fact that it's a virtual program. Some of the programs that we're offering now are what I call take and make programs. So we will assemble a sort of kit of all the supplies you'll need to make a certain thing, whether it's like a 3D printed spring-powered car or a really elaborate foam dart launcher, something like that. People will come, they'll take the kit home, it'll have everything they need to build it, it'll have detailed instructions that we've created on how to put it all together. Whereas before, maybe the maximum we could do is 12 or so, and now we're able to do 30, 60, 120, as many as we can make and put out there. I think we are reaching more people.
The COVID crisis helping you reach so many more people and sparking their creativity. Jeff, thanks for being with us this morning on the Oakland County Megacast. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go on Instagram and start following you and download your podcast too. Again, give the name of the podcast.
It's Beeple People, BPL.
I'm going to download it on my way home. Thank you so much for being with us. We do appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we come back, we are going to continue to create, Tyler. We're heading to the Science Center on the Oakland County Megacast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
Well, Tyler, it's 11 o'clock. That first hour just flew
It did.
by.
It really did.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl, Tyler Keefe, sitting right here next to me. We appreciate everyone tuning in today. As always, you can catch us on 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. If you're out driving around, tune in on the radio. And you can also catch us at civiccentertv.com, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. And if you're on Facebook, we are streaming today on West Bloomfield School District's Facebook page. We want to say thank you to them. This is all about creativity today.
It is.
I want to go back to school. Can you believe that? I'm ready to go back to school. And since school is virtual right now, it's a good time to do it. We are going to now we're heading to the Science Center. We have so many cool museums and things going on here in the Metro Detroit area. We're so lucky to have them in our backyard. Anna Sterner is with the Michigan Science Center. You're an educator. Anna, what are you going to teach us today?
Well, we are going to demo an activity that we are talking about today on our weekly science program, which is called Echo Live. Every week on Echo Live, we talk about a different science topic. We don't like to be restricted by just one thing because, of course, we are the Michigan Science Center, so we will talk about just about anything. But today is a really cool episode for us because we're going to talk about something that anyone can go outside today or this week or especially this fall and do themselves. We're going to talk about the science behind the changing colors of the leaves that we see outside. We'll talk a little bit about how you can identify some Michigan native tree species, and then we'll do a really cool experiment talking about how you can actually extract some of those really beautiful pigments that we see in some of the various leaves we find outside.
So Anna, is the museum reopened right now to the public? How is that working?
We are. So we reopened to the public on July 10th. We took a little bit of time from our official allowed to open date to make sure we had all of our safety protocols in place before we officially reopened and let guests come back inside. You'll notice that the building is a little bit different. We've rearranged a lot of our exhibits to ensure more space for social distancing. There are hand sanitizer dispensers all over our building. We are really excited that people have been very, very positive about our reopening. People have been so excited to come back because up until July, people had no choice but to experience just our virtual programs online. And now they can do both because we are still serving people who are learning virtually, but also allowing people into the building as well.
Anna Sterner with us. She is the science educator at the Michigan Science Center, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. So, of course, you got the live Echo Science demonstrations. Beyond that, are there other virtual forms of learning or other virtual forms of engaging with the Michigan Science Center that are available during this time? And are there also some opportunities maybe in person now that we're a little further into the pandemic?
There are. So starting back in March when the state shut down, we launched Echo Live. We started doing daily science programs that were free for anyone to tune into. And we're continuing to do those programs on a weekly basis now that school has started back up for the fall. But if you are a classroom learner or a teacher who is looking for even more experiences for your students, or if you are a homeschool parent who is teaching your child at home, we have all sorts of other resources online as well. We are developing virtual field trips. Those consist of interactive games and lessons that we've developed online that you can do at your own pace. We talk about weather, we talk about space. We try to tie them to all of our various exhibit galleries that we do have here in person at the Science Center, but allow you to experience those online. We've also been providing at-home science activity guides for activities that people might have seen on some of our Echo Live episodes. We provide activity guides so that people can try those activities with a step-by-step instruction guide at their own pace. And we love seeing people post some of those activities that they've tried at home. Lots of people have been inspired by something they've seen online and got to try it themselves. And we love when people share their results of their own experiments with us. But we are also reopened to the public, so people can come visit our building right here in Midtown Detroit. We had a free Summer of Science, and we are continuing to be open this fall. We are open Thursday through Sunday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. You should go online, go to the Michigan Science Center's website to reserve your tickets in advance. You can also browse some of our different safety protocols that we have listed on our website as well. We've been working really hard with a company called NSF to make sure that our building meets all the standards that we should be meeting in order to keep people safe, but also making sure that people are having fun and having a positive experience with science while they're here.
Anna, you're probably one of the funnest and coolest science teachers I've ever met. I see you have leaves right there in front of you. Are you going to do a demonstration for us?
We are. So I just took a really brief walk down my street before I headed into work this morning so that I could collect some specimens or living things for our experiments today. And you'll notice that all these leaves are pretty different. They're different colors, they're different shapes. And this is part of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about using something called a dichotomous key, which is a way to help you identify a species of tree or really any other sort of identification that you might want to do. But this dichotomous key is going to help us to classify some different types of leaves. So we'll be looking at different leaf arrangements, different leaf shapes. For example, I have a sugar maple leaf here, and you can see that it's a really beautiful bright red color. But we'll be talking about how you can take a look at specific features of these leaves, like if they have simple leaves or compound leaves, if they are jagged on their edges, or if they are smooth. We'll be taking up close looks at some of the leaf arrangements so that we can identify these. So we know that this one is a sugar maple, but I have some other ones. So if people tune into Echo Live, which happens on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and right here in Zoom, people will get to identify some of these species with us. But I also have a different experiment set up right down here on my table. And this one, before the program, all I've done is I've taken some of those leaves that I collected this morning and I've mashed them up. You can see that I have kind of a leaves kind of smashed up substance in here. I've ripped up some leaves and I've smashed them up and soaked them in just a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. What that's done is it's actually let me release some of those beautiful pigments that we find inside the leaves. So this one is a pretty bright green color because I got it from these very, very green maple leaves that are pretty early on in their process of breaking down. But then I also took some of those red sugar maple leaves. These ones are going through that color change that I'm sure we all recognize is going on right now outside with most of the leaves that we see. I've done the same thing, and you can see that this substance is a little bit more red. What we're going to be teaching people how to do today is how you can actually separate the different types of pigments that we find inside leaves. The green is what we call chlorophyll, and this is definitely the most prominent color that we see in leaves for most of the year. Chlorophyll is green. It comes from those chloroplasts, which we find inside most plant cells or all plant cells, and gives them that bright green color. And we're going to use a process called chromatography in order to separate the pigments that we have down there inside our liquid. I've done a little bit of pre-work before our time together here. And I've just taken a small strip of paper towel, but a coffee filter would work great for this as well. I've kind of taped it to a skewer, or you could use a popsicle stick. And I'm just going to set it down just barely inside our liquid. And you can see that that liquid is starting to slowly travel up the strip of paper towel. The process of that liquid traveling up the paper towel is called capillary action. And that's actually the exact same action that plants use in order to draw water out of the ground and get it into their various leaves and branches in order for them to survive. So I've done this twice. So we have one that we're dipping down here inside our green pigment, that chlorophyll, but we're also going to set one down inside our red liquid. Now this process takes a little bit of time. Capillary action works slowly, but that's a good thing. This process that we call chromatography is going to actually allow us to separate the different pigments that we find inside leaves. The color that we see in red leaves is because of a chemical called anthocyanin. Anthocyanin only appears as chlorophyll, the green pigment, starts to break down. And this happens because these trees start to get less sunlight as we move into fall. Now, you might know that just last week, we actually had our first official day of fall. On the 22nd, we had the autumnal equinox, which means that from this point on until the winter solstice, our days are getting shorter and shorter and shorter, meaning we are getting less sunlight, which means less of that photosynthesis is happening inside these leaves. And that's really what's responsible for this color change. As they get less sunlight, there is less chlorophyll being produced by the process of photosynthesis. These trees go into winter mode, and they start to turn red as the chlorophyll breaks down and turns to anthocyanin. But of course, we see other colors besides just red and green. I have some kind of yellow leaves here, and that's because of a pigment called xanthophyll. And xanthophyll is actually present all year round. It's always in the leaves. We just don't notice it until the chlorophyll starts to disappear. But our process of chromatography, which is happening down on our strips of paper, is going to allow us to separate all the pigments that could possibly be inside the leaf right now. I set up a couple before our program here today, and you can see that on this one, if I zoom in maybe even just a little bit further, we see green, which is that really well-known chlorophyll right here, this band of green pigment, but we can also see a line of yellow, which is that xanthophyll pigment. So again, this is one of those really cool activities that people can go out and try at home. It doesn't require any sort of expensive equipment or dangerous chemicals. All you really need are leaves, various colors, various stages of decomposition, some green, some red, maybe some yellow if you can find them, a couple strips of paper towel, some isopropyl alcohol, and a cup. It's a really, really easy experiment that you can do at home in order to help separate these pigments and identify a process that's going on out in nature all the time. Things that we might not notice, but are really important for the ecosystem around us. So we do experiments like this all the time on Echo Live. We've got more to talk about today. We'll dive in a little bit deeper about how you can identify the species of trees that you see in your neighborhood or when you go on a walk. Maybe not today because I do think it's supposed to rain, but maybe tomorrow. But again, people can tune into our experiments every Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and right here in Zoom.
Anna Sterner with us on the Oakland County Megacast. She is the MySci science educator at the Michigan Science Center, joining us today on the program. And Anna, as people have been clamoring to also get back out to the movie theater lately, and it says here in my notes that you can talk about MySci will be opening out theaters beginning in early October. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, if you're like me, I have missed going to the movies. Definitely ready to reopen our theaters here and do so safely. But we do have 2 theaters that will be reopening to the public on October 9th, which is next Friday. Our IMAX Dome Theater is actually the largest IMAX screen in the state of Michigan. And starting October 9th, we will be showing the movie Tenet. It's a Warner Brothers movie. It's a spy thriller. And so we'll have multiple showings of that movie every day that we are open, Thursday through Sunday. And then we also have our 4D engineering theater where we'll be showing a film called Backyard Wilderness, which is pretty great for the topic we just talked about. But in our 4D theater, which has lots of special effects, we'll be talking about the animals and nature that you can find right in your own backyard. So 2 theaters here at the Michigan Science Center. While you're here, you can also experience our various exhibits and hands-on activities that are going on throughout the day. So it's even better than a movie theater because you get more than just your regular theater experience. Our capacity will be limited, of course. We are making sure that we are being safe as we reopen our theaters, so you will need to reserve your tickets online in advance. Go to the Michigan Science website so that you can do that. And again, our movies start playing next Friday, October 9th.
Anna, your enthusiasm for science is catching on. You seem like you just absolutely love science. And this is a good way for parents to get involved with their kids as well. How do you decide which experiment you're going to do?
That's a great question. You know, we have just mountains and mountains of content here at the Michigan Science Center. We've been teaching programs for a really long time. And so, of course, I started off with the things that I thought were the coolest. I majored in biology in college, so I love to talk about nature and animals and things like that. But the cool thing is, since we've built such a large following of people online, now the students and the families have started suggesting the content that they'd like us to talk about during our free weekly episodes. We've had people suggest that they wanted to talk about the science of dogs and cats, and so we did that a little bit earlier this summer. Some people want to talk about experiments that they couldn't do at home, working with things like fire or really, really cold stuff like liquid nitrogen. And so the cool part about our programs is that we are always taking suggestions from the audience. If you have suggestions, tune into an episode of Echo Live, send us a message, tell us what you'd like us to talk about, and we would love to do that. The cool part is we can bring science experiments to people who are learning at home or learning remotely with their classroom for things that you might not be able to access. We would love to provide that for people.
And when you are doing these virtually, I would imagine that you've been able to reach so many more people than previously. Do you think this is something you guys are going to keep doing after the pandemic is over? If that day ever comes, we hope, which is going to be soon.
We all hope for that very soon. But I think what we've learned is that virtual learning is here to stay. Research has shown that people are learning even more online than they might in certain cases when they're learning in person. Of course, learning in person is great, but it's great to do both. And I think that the benefit of doing virtual learning is that, of course, we can reach people who might not have access to our physical space here, people who might not have reliable transportation to come visit us on a field trip, or just might be too far away. We've reached people in the very, very northern parts of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, all the way to the west side of the state, and even in other states and other countries around the world. So virtual learning, I think, is here to stay. We aren't going to stop providing virtual programs. And I think that everyone can keep experiencing these things from all their various cultural institutions. Everyone is doing virtual learning now, and it's really an opportunity for you to have access to these resources that you might not otherwise have.
You definitely make it fun, and it's so much better than sitting in a classroom and reading out of a book. Anna, before we let you go, anything that we didn't touch on that maybe that you want to share with everyone?
Absolutely. If you are interested in tuning into Echo Live, please do. But also make sure that you come check out the Michigan Science Center's website. There are all sorts of resources on there. We have traveling science programs. So if you would like us to come to you, we are able to do so. If you want to visit us virtually, if you want to visit us in person, really our goal is to meet people where they're at and provide them with high quality STEM learning experiences. So check out our website, check out our social media, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And I know there's just a little bit of something for everybody.
Anna, thank you for being with us. I'm going to go home today, get out on the trail, pick up some leaves, and I'm going to try your experiment.
That's awesome. Thanks so much.
Anna with us. Check out the Michigan Science Center. Have you ever been there, Tyler?
I've not. No.
Oh, it is so incredible. It really is a lot of fun. It's a great way for kids to get excited about science because sometimes it can be hard to kind of grasp some of the concepts, and they definitely make it fun and spark that enthusiasm for science. So thank you to Anna and her team at the Michigan Science Center. We appreciate your time. Check them out online and also some of their classes. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we come back, we're going to be checking in with our good friend, Mayor Kalman, over in the city of Keego Harbor.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6. If you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for tuning in and checking out the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl, alongside the one, the only, Tyler Keefe here in the Civic Center studios. We're located here in the greater West Bloomfield area. We are on air Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon, working to bring you longer form, in-depth interviews with some of our newsmakers, our politicians, and also highlighting so many of the businesses that are throughout the area. Right now, though, we are excited to bring in one of our local mayors, Rob Kalman. He is the mayor of our fine city, my favorite city, Keego Harbor. Although, Mayor Kalman, I will say, I think Keego is kind of a secret that's about to explode. I don't know if we want people to know about us.
Well, I'll welcome you to tout our good city and all the successes we're about to see in the near future. So go for it.
We are. So Keego Harbor, the heart of the lakes. We have so many great things going on in the city. However, this has been a tough time for all cities. I think one thing that might come out of the pandemic that could be a good thing for all of us is we've really come to understand and realize the importance of some of our local leaders and people such as yourself who are leading us through this pandemic. This can't be an easy time, even 6 months into this.
Yeah, it's 2020. As a lot of people say, it's been a challenging year. And the way we've dealt with it, me as the mayor and our council, we're always looking for credible information, looking for resources that can help us make good decisions and help our community. We're looking for ways we can improve the safety and health of our staff at City Hall and also the residents. And we've been fortunate that we've interacted with people at the county level who've helped us out immensely. And some of our neighbors. We've got a great fire department. We're part of the Tri-City Fire Department, and we work with West Bloomfield, extremely professional. And our police force, they've been really outstanding throughout the whole, past 6-7 months, showing up every day, doing a great job, and really supporting our whole community.
We're 6 months into this. Is it getting easier to try to manage all the different facets of this crisis and this pandemic, or is it still changing every single day?
When we first were exposed to it back in March, of course, it's this big unknown and nobody really understood it. Working with, of course, the Oakland County Health Department, I think they've been, and the Oakland County Executive Office, they've been really good about disseminating information to us and helping us understand what steps we can take to help secure things. So, it's never easy when you're dealing with something like this, but, we've had experience now. And I think as a council, we've listened to some of the people who are involved at the expert level, and we're making some good decisions to help us move forward. And so in that sense, it's a little bit easier for us. I think, we're into it. We understand. Even some of the medical doctors know, they're understanding the ways it's spread, so we can take the right precautions. And fortunate, we've got some grant money coming in to help us secure City Hall and some of our parks and things like that. So we're safe.
Mayor Robert Kalman with us on the Oakland County Megacast, joining us from the city of Keego Harbor. He is their mayor in the city at this moment in time. And Mayor Kalman, we talk a lot about the grant funding that's come in to help keep city services running smoothly and to help support some programs that help support our local businesses. As we're heading into the colder months of the year, we're into the thick of fall and we're approaching winter. Has there been any discussions at the city level similar to what happened in the spring early on in the pandemic, to help local businesses, particularly retail and restaurants, that may have to move a significant portion of their business back indoors because of the cold weather?
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Tyler. I think you remember we put an ordinance together this past spring to expand the outdoor seating to help the restaurants weather the storm. We had reduced capacity inside, so we let them expand outside for seating and hopefully pick up some additional revenue. It's up to the individual business owners how they want to pursue that, and we're going to think about ways we can help out. But as we move back into the colder weather months and people aren't able to sit outside, hopefully the business owners are going to think of some creative ways to help their activity and the revenue stream. I've been pretty vocal. I get a Keego Harbor Facebook page myself that I help administer. It's a personal page, asking residents to support our local businesses. Some of them I know that like Cachinos are very fortunate. They've been around so long, so their carryout business is helping to sustain them, although I'm sure they're missing some of their larger events.
Mayor Kalman with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. What has this been like to try to attract new businesses into the area?
It's interesting. We're involved with the Gibbs Group right now, and we did a residential and a retail study about 8-9 months ago, and we're looking at next steps to continue our engagement with the Gibbs Group. And it's going to be actually part of our discussion at our study session in October on the 13th. And we're actually going to invite TIFA, which help the Tax Increment Finance Authority and the Planning Commission are going to come join us at the study session, and we're going to discuss ways to continue the engagement. And it's really interesting because with the Gibbs Group, what you're doing is working with a world-renowned planning group that's going to help us create, if you will, a walkable downtown village, sort of like an up north vibe, but here in Oakland County. And what we're really going to do is create, hopefully, an environment where business owners want to invest. And really what it takes to have a business owner want to invest is also having residents want to build their homes here. So you have people who are going to be walking throughout and supporting the local community. So what we'll do, hopefully, if our TIF and planning agree with the council, is continue the study and create some additional collateral, if you will, and create some documentation, which is going to signal to the business community and investors that they want to come to Keego Harbor because, one, it's got a network of people, a population that will support their businesses. Also, I think it's going to show. Let me backtrack a second. One of the parts of the study which I really found most fascinating when he presented to us a few months ago is that within a 15-minute drive of Keego Harbor, we rival the buying power of any community in Oakland County, if not exceed it. And part of that's, we're right next to Sylvan Lake, we're right next to Cass Lake, so there's a lot of water, and it's very attractive to build some homes. And so I think that, to your original point, what are we doing to help businesses see Keego Harbor? We're going to work with the Gibbs Group a little bit more, and we're going to, of course, listen to some of the things that we learned at the Oakland County One Stop Ready program, which I attended a few years ago with Gino Santia and our city manager and another council member at the time, ways to make it pretty easy for a business owner to come into town. So it's a seamless process from idea to planning to building, and give them the ease of knowing that when they come to Keego, they're not going to have a lot of red tape to go through, so their business can be successful and thrive. It's a long answer for your question, but.
No, not at all. And as a lot of people do know, or, I am a resident of Keego Harbor. We moved in, I want to say back in 2006. And when we first moved in, we did have some of the coffee shops and those little stores that have since gone away. And I miss that. I miss being able to go to Big B Coffee, if you remember that. That tells you how long we've been there, sitting by the fireplace.
It's a computer shop now, I think.
Yeah, yes. And they're even moving now, too. So with that, what is it, if you had a magic wand, what would it look like? Because we do have quite a few businesses on that strip that have been closed for quite some time. And then the 2 empty lots on the corner there as well of Cass Lake.
Right. The Cass Lake and Orchard Lake, I think you're referring to, which is where it's some city-owned property.
Yeah.
And, if I can envision what I think it would look like, of course, you'd have to work with the community. And that's what we were doing. When we're working with Gibbs, and we also redid our master plan. We had groups of citizens, residents of the community, actively engaging with the planners to help decide how we want the city to look. So it's important that it's not just my opinion, but we're engaging with the residents, and we can make decisions to move the city forward, but I have to respect the city's history and some of the long-term residents. Because it's like the tension with the rubber band. You want to go in one direction, but the other, it pulls you back a little bit. With the Gibbs group, he showed, and I don't know if you've seen, I should have taken the picture and shown you, created some sketches to some of the cities he's worked with before. And so it's if you think of an up north community where you had this walkable downtown village, and we can almost superimpose that within the Cass Lake and Orchard Lake area, and create that walkable, the cool vibe where people can walk from restaurants to maybe a shared parking lot somewhere. That's one of the issues we've faced at times, is we've got a lot of potential, but we have to figure out how to handle the parking situation. And so I think some of that is where we're looking, and I think engaging with Gibbs and engaging with some of the other developers that have approached me, because there are some talks right now about developing some of the property behind Santia. There's an empty lot back there behind Bachelor's. And there's also talk about redeveloping some of the strip malls, resurfacing, re-imaging them at the other side of Cass and Orchard where you're referring to. So there are some ongoing discussions. And I think that you're going to see some movement. I think right now a lot of people are a little gun shy, they being some of the developers, because construction costs and supply costs, the raw material costs have gone up quite a bit with the pandemic. So I think they're right now looking to have things stabilize a little bit.
Some exciting news, though. It sounds like the old Johnny Rockets is going to reopen. I think I saw that on your Facebook page.
Yeah. Somebody just leased it the other day. There's going to be from what I understand, a restaurant similar to what Hunter House is in Birmingham. So that's going to be sometime in November. I think one of the social media sites exploded when that news came out. People were pretty happy.
Yeah, that building's been sitting empty for quite some time. I think in 2018, our population in the city of Keego was just over 3,400. What are things looking like for the census now? Are people actually filling it out?
It was, with COVID, it was a little challenge with, I've seen the census workers, in fact, in your neighborhood. The other day, I saw them with their masks on, walking around trying to get people to fill out the census form if they didn't do it online. Of course, it's always important. And I believe the date, which was supposed to be sort of soon, was extended till the end of October so people can fill it out. And the numbers are probably going to be pretty stable right around now. 3,000 is the rough estimate. I'd expect it to be right around there when the census is done. So it's right in that neighborhood.
Robert Kalman with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the mayor of the city of Keego Harbor today, joining us on the program. Mayor Kalman, with the schools back in session, there's, of course, Roosevelt Elementary School that's right next to Keego Harbor City Hall, and then very close to just outside the Keego Harbor city limits is Abbott Middle School as well. how much of a focus has been put on the safety of those schools, being that they are operating at different times than normal? We've talked a little bit about that with Chief Fitzgerald. What's the response been like from the community in terms of the parents and the teachers on site on those days where they are in person?
Yeah, it's they've been very appreciative because Chief Fitzgerald and the Keego Police Force, they've been very upfront with drivers in the community. They actually will park a squad car in the turn lane for, not to obstruct the Orchard Lake Cass Lake Road turn, but I've seen them with their lights on at the early morning drop-off and the late morning pickup, the early afternoon drop-off, the late afternoon pickup. And they're out there. They're very visible. It's one of the things I like about our police force. They're friendly, and they interact with the residents, with the business owners, and it's not like they're hiding in a corner playing a game of gotcha. They're just out there. They're showing people, hey, slow down. Most people know that when you go into a school zone, it's 25 miles an hour, but because of the different drop-off times, I assume Chief Fitzgerald talked to you about this. People might not be aware that you need to slow down at different times of the day now in Cass Lake. And I think he's had pretty good partnership with the Orchard Lake Police Department, because Orchard Lake Middle School is actually Abbott. Orchard Lake is, of course, the one over on further down West Bloomfield. Abbott is actually parked right in the city of Orchard Lake Village. So part of it appears to be in Keego Harbor because it's right across the. If you walk across the street, it's Keego Harbor. But we're working in close collaboration with Abbott and the Orchard Lake Police Department to handle that one. So it's very visible.
Mayor Robert Kalman with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. Mayor, everyone had to pretty much go virtual during the pandemic. How is that going? I know sometimes for city meetings with the comment period and sessions, it can get a little confusing. But do you think it could be something that sticks around after this crisis is over?
Wait, let me unmute myself.
Right.
Yeah, we've had a few where people start talking and we have to remind them to hit that unmute button. I'm pretty comfortable with it. Like I think I've told people before, I have a technology company. And even having that technology company, I still catch myself having to hit the unmute button. Just want to be polite and not leave it, unmuted while people are talking. I've heard both ways. Some people love the in-person. And, we're going to have to think about when we start having in-person meetings again. And the jury's out on that one. And we'll see how that moves. But I personally, I enjoy, I'd like to see people face to face, but, I'm okay with the virtual for right now. We have the ability to have the chat feature. We can have the questions and answers can still be done that way. I think I said the last time we spoke with each other, there have been people who've asked me to keep, even when we go back to in-person meetings, keep the Zoom feature because they can, we have call-in questions at the end of the meeting where they pick up the phone, they call, they talk to a clerk, and they ask the clerk would write down their question. With Zoom, they can actually engage one-on-one with us, well, 5 if it's a council, but they can ask a question on screen, and they feel that's a little bit more interactive, and they feel a little bit more part of the meeting if they're sitting at home. We actually now we'll look at some virtual meeting policies for our boards and commissions because it'd be helpful if they're out on business and they can still partake in a meeting if they're out of town. So it's working. It's is it ideal? Nah, people would love to be in person, but this is what we have.
I would imagine it's also a good feature, though. Like if I have kids, I can be at home, cook dinner, help them with their homework, and not have to take time out of my schedule or maybe even take them up to the meeting with me as well. So there's some benefits to everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just over 30 days until election days. I know here in Keego, it's not really a big thing. We have the one polling place. How did it seem like things went really well for the primary? Are you guys ready for the November election?
I think so. I think we secured a grant from the state of Michigan, so we actually purchased an additional ballot reader And so we've always had, if you voted in Keego Harbor, one, you vote, and then you scan your ballot into the machine. We now have a second one, which is going to be exclusive for the absentee voters, and we set up an absentee voting board to help secure those. But there's a whole process. It was really eye-opening, is what you have to do. And I know people are concerned about mail-in or absentees, and so there's a whole process that's being followed to make sure that's happening. So I think we're going to be in good shape. And you never know it's election season. There's signs. I've seen a few signs.
Yeah, it's real quickly before we have to let you go. Trick-or-treating, it's such a huge deal in the city of Keego Harbor because of the way our city is laid out. A lot of people have been concerned that the city was going to cancel trick-or-treating. Anything you want the public to know about that issue?
I'm not canceling that. I mean, that's, we'll see what the governor wants to do, and there'll probably be some recommendations as to safe ways families can engage with their children. So, I mean, stay tuned as to what the state and the health departments have to say on that one. But, it's been a rough time for a lot of kids. And, that one, there's going to have to be some safe ways that can still take place. Social distance, trick-or-treating, families maybe leaving candy further out so you don't have that close contact. But, especially in some of the neighborhoods where it's been such a big activity over the years in Keego Harbor, that they're going to have to figure out a way to do it safely and move forward with that.
Mayor Kalman, thank you so much for taking time to be with us. We appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, and when we come back, we'll be checking in with Gary Peters. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonay Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Thank you for tuning in to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keith here in our studios of 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV in the West Bloomfield area. We are honored right now to bring in U.S. Senator Gary Peters on the Oakland County Megacast. Senator, where do you want to start? So much to talk about today.
There is so much. I'll defer to you. Whatever you'd like to talk about, whatever folks want to hear. Look forward
How
to
about we start off with COVID relief? Where do things stand there in D.C.? Any movement at all?
Well, there's some movement. There's discussions going on, so I'm cautiously optimistic. There's no question that we need to do more to get through this crisis. We came together in a bipartisan way with the CARES Act several months ago, which put much needed relief into the economy and helping families to make sure that unemployment was expanded and had an opportunity to help people who were laid off for no fault of their own and needed to keep a roof over their head and food on the table. Also, I fought to make sure we had help for small businesses that are absolutely critical for our economy, and any hope that we have to have the economy recover as quickly as possible is completely dependent on making sure that small businesses survive. They are the engines of growth. But we also have to help our state and local governments that are seeing a significant drop in revenue and yet need to continue to provide resources as well as health providers. It's a long list. CARES Act was important, but clearly this pandemic is lasting a whole lot longer than any of us would like, and we need to continue to provide support. I believe we need to continue to help folks who find themselves unemployed. We're also going to need a little longer runway to help small businesses. Depending on the industry you're in, some businesses have been able to recover a lot quicker than others, and we need to help those smaller businesses in particular that may have a hard time going forward, and our local government. So, the House passed a version, the HEROES Act, several months ago. Unfortunately, the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, wouldn't take it up, wouldn't start any kind of substantive negotiations. Here we are, and we've still have a ways to go. Hopefully, we'll get that done in the next few days. I know the House has put together another proposal to send to the Senate, and hopefully the Republican leader will allow us to work on that.
U.S. Senator Gary Peters with us today on the Oakland County Megacast, all throughout the local area on a variety of various media outlets, as well as on the Facebook page of the West Bloomfield School District. Senator Peters, earlier this month, you and the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee had released a report detailing results of the investigation into some of the operations of the United States Postal Service. Can you give us an update on that information and what has been found, and what actions may be taken at the federal level to support the Postal Service and their continued efforts going forward as we're in the thick of election season?
Absolutely, and actually, what the investigation did was confirm what we were hearing. Around mid-July, I started to get complaints from all across the state of Michigan. People were complaining about mail delivery delays. They wondered what was going on, and it was the number. That's not unusual for me to have folks contacting my office about mail delays, but there was just this massive spike in that across the state, particularly in southeast Michigan. I reached out to the men and women who care deeply about delivering mail on time, our letter carriers, our postal workers, our mail handlers. These are professionals that go to work every day and take great pride in delivering the mail on time. And they were telling me that new policies that were put in place by a new postmaster general was having the impact of slowing down mail. And it was frustrating them. They were seeing mail pile up and were told to go home, don't worry about moving it out, which is different than what they are used to, where you always move the mail out. And so we asked a lot of questions, forced the Postmaster General to answer those questions. Our investigation basically confirmed what folks were telling us. You saw on-time mail deliveries drop dramatically in the Detroit area, which is a broad area for it. When the Postal Service has a standard of 95% of first-class mail should be delivered on time, the standard dropped dramatically starting in mid-July and showed it dropped at one point, a low point, that only 60% of mail was being delivered on time. So close to half of the mail was not on time. And it's meaningful. You mentioned the election and absentee ballots, which of course are absolutely critical. But we have to remember mail delivery is important every single day when you think about medicines. In fact, some of the stories that I heard from folks who were not receiving medicines on time, one mother talked about how her daughter relies on medicine to help her with the epileptic seizures that she has. She normally gets the medicine within 3 days, but it didn't come. It turned out it was 9 days before she got it. But it had tragic consequences because her daughter was afraid that she wouldn't have the medicine. She started to reduce the dosage, which is something you shouldn't do. And clearly it caused problems for her. She ended up suffering a seizure and was hospitalized. So you think about how important the Postal Service is, from medicines to making sure people get paychecks and benefit checks and pay their bills on time. Small businesses need to get that out. It was having a major impact. The pressure we put on the Postmaster General led him to then suspend some of those new policies that were put in place until after the election. That is occurring, although we are hearing mixed reports as to what extent that is happening. I'm right now working closely with the Inspector General, our Postal Inspector General, that provides oversight and she's providing daily monitoring of what's happening with mail delivery. My point, and what came out in that investigation, though, is that we should, before we put in some of these new procedures, and what was striking about it was the lack of data. The Postal Service has not provided information as to any data or analysis that went into making these decisions and the potential impact. We should not move forward with these kinds of changes until you actually have that data. And the fact that they haven't been able to provide it to me tells me they didn't have sufficient data to make those kinds of decisions. But we should be delaying any of those, not just through the election, but through the pandemic. When we get through the pandemic, that's a different situation than we find ourselves right now. But we're going to stay on it. The Postal Service is certainly focused right now to make sure absentee ballots and election mail gets processed as quickly as possible. Some of the early reports are encouraging, but we have to continue to monitor it.
Senator Peters with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. We are 6 months into this crisis. And after the display that we saw last night in the debate, it seems like there is so much division in Capitol Hill, in D.C. How confident should the American people be in our elected leaders to continue to see us through this crisis?
Well, yeah, we have to come together and work in a bipartisan way. That's the only way we get through these really tough crises. It's something that I focus on every single day here in the Senate. And in fact, I'm ranked as one of the most bipartisan U.S. senators. There's actually a number of folks that rank folks. The Georgetown University has the Lugar Center for bipartisanship. They actually rank every member of Congress, both in the House and the Senate. And most recently, I was ranked the third most bipartisan Democratic senator in the Senate. And in fact, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is not a Democratic organization by any means, and I'm a Democratic senator, but they recently awarded me their inaugural Jefferson Hamilton Award for bipartisanship. And I think that's the only way that we should operate when it comes to really tough issues. We should come together, find common ground. That's how I get things done. That's why I'm also ranked one of the most effective in getting bills passed. In fact, this last 2 years, I have authored and passed more bills through the United States Senate than any other U.S. senator, either Democratic or Republican. And I'm a freshman. I'm a new guy, but this is something that I'm focused on. But you're right, it's challenging on some of these big issues, and it's frustrating, but I work every day to reach across the aisle and understand that we've got to get things done for the people in Michigan.
And how hard is it right now to be in D.C. to try to get the people on the other side of the aisle to work with you? Because it does appear to the regular citizen that everything is along party lines right now and nothing's getting done.
Well, as I mentioned, in fact, I've passed 2 more pieces of legislation just in the last week. So we are getting some things done. But clearly, the partisanship is intense. And now we're in the midst of a Supreme Court nomination that has been put forward and is being rushed, which is frustrating for me because as we talked about the COVID package, we need to come together on a bipartisan way to make sure we get through this crisis, to make sure people have the resources they need to get through and we can get the economy up and running as quickly as possible. We have to do that on a bipartisan way. Leader McConnell has not been willing to do that, and apparently there wasn't time to deal with the COVID crisis. But now we have a Supreme Court nomination that apparently can be rushed through, and there's floor time to be able to do that, which just sends a signal to the American people and folks across Michigan that clearly this is hyper-partisan. We need to spend time working on a COVID package, not rushing through a Supreme Court nominee, particularly when you think people are actually voting right now. I mean, folks are getting their ballots, they're voting. The decision made who gets to nominate a Supreme Court nominee is a huge decision. It's going to have impacts on healthcare, for example. The Affordable Care Act will be before the Supreme Court shortly after the election. We've got issues related to reproductive freedom. We have issues related to voting rights, to whether or not corporations, their views end up being predominant and everyday Americans don't have a say through the Supreme Court. It's huge. And when you think about it, we've never had a Supreme Court nominee put through the Congress past July of election year. It's never happened in the history of this country. In fact, this will be one of the quickest moves to try to put through a Supreme Court nominee while we're in the midst of an election. As we all know, Justice Ginsburg passed roughly 40 days before the election The only time ever in history that there was somebody closer to that was when Abraham Lincoln was the president of this country, and a justice passed roughly 30 days prior to the election, basically the same timeline as with Justice Ginsburg. And Abraham Lincoln stood up and said, I will not nominate a Supreme Court justice because we are too close to an election. This is too important for our country. This is a significant branch of government. And Abraham Lincoln said the American people should have a say in this as they go to the polls in just a few short weeks. Abraham Lincoln understood how important that was. Abraham Lincoln understood the importance of maintaining legitimacy in the Supreme Court and how important that is. Clearly, our current president does not take that position. Neither do we see the Republican Senate leadership taking that position, and they're pushing it very, very aggressively.
U.S. Senator Gary Peters with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Senator Peters, just another couple of minutes with you today before we have to say goodbye. While we have those couple of minutes, let's go back to the topic of bipartisanship in the U.S. Senate and talk about a couple of those recent bills that were passed on a bipartisan level that you worked closely on, the CHARGE Act and the Pro-SWIFT Act. Can you give us a bit of an overview over those two pieces of legislation?
Well, actually, I'll mention one in the time constraint here. The Pro-SWIFT Act actually deals with the ability for us to better predict space weather events, and which are actually significant. In fact, just earlier, about an hour before being with you right now, we had the administrator of NASA who talked about that bill and how important it is for us to protect astronauts and missions going forward as we continue to move forward and are going to the moon, eventually to Mars, as well as our International Space Station. But in addition to the space program, people aren't aware of space weather. These are mass coronal injections of particles from the sun. They play havoc with communication systems. They can play havoc with electrical systems. This issue came to my attention from folks at the University of Michigan. We have one of the top heliophysics departments in the country. And if a large storm occurs, which they do occur, so it's not if, it's when, it can impact the Earth and actually have the impact of shutting down the electric grid widespread all across the country. In fact, Lloyd's of London estimates that if a large storm occurs, like we had back in the early 1800s, it could cause trillions of dollars of disruptions in our economy. Trillions, massive disruptions, power outages that could last for months. I mean, just think of New York City without power for months, what that could mean. So it's a significant issue. My legislation that I worked in a bipartisan way to get through will now allow us to better predict these storms and then be able to deal with them. These are catastrophic, and now we're leaning into it. And I was pleased to have certainly the comments from the administrator of NASA to say how important this legislation was, and it's important we're thinking ahead. We need to think before disaster strikes to be able to prevent it and to deal with it, not afterwards. And if we wait and we ignore these, it will be potentially catastrophic to our country.
We like to try to think that in this crisis, we have improved some things. From your standpoint, what do you think has been a benefit that's come out of the crisis that has improved our country and may stick around post-pandemic?
Well, I think it's highlighted something that we absolutely have to fix. Last year in Homeland Security Committee, as the ranking Democrat, the top Democrat, I had my committee staff do another investigation and a report on drug shortages. Right now, and at that time, we faced drug shortages in this country. Hospitals often every week have to determine which drugs aren't they going to be able to get. And make accommodations for that. And often the replacements are not as effective and cost more money. It's a system that has to be corrected. And the reason for it is that we're over dependent on foreign suppliers for critical drugs, the precursors that go into drugs. Nearly 80% is overseas, most of it from China. And the report also showed our dependence on things like surgical masks and swabs for testing, all of the things that we were in critical shortage of. And I actually concluded last year that when this country is in a pandemic, we're going to face a really serious issue. Little did I know, just a few months later, we are now in the pandemic, and clearly that is what's happening. So we have to take back production. We have to take it back and make sure it's made in the United States. This is a homeland security issue for me, that we are able to make the drugs we need to maintain the health of all of us Americans, as well as the other medical supplies. So I'm focused on this. We're working on legislation to be able to bring back that production to the U.S. The same way we look at critical industrial production for the war effort should we go to war. We make sure we are able to build ships in the United States, warships, not from other countries. The same thing has to apply for critical medical supplies. So I think this is no longer theoretical from a report that I put out with my concerns. This is real world. We've seen it real time. We have to fix it. We have to make sure our supply chains are not just efficient, but they're resilient. And that's certainly something that has come out of this pandemic, and we've got to make sure we never have this problem again. Unfortunately, we do know there will be another pandemic at some point. That's just part of human history. So we need to be better prepared for when the next one comes. Hopefully not for a long time, but we better be prepared in case it comes quicker.
Yeah, we all hope that. Thank you so much, Senator, for taking time out of your schedule. We always appreciate having you here on the Oakland County Megacast. We are going to wrap up the show now, but a great show today here, Tyler. So thank you to everyone for tuning in. If you missed any portion of the interviews, you can also catch them a little bit later on civiccentertv.com. This has been the Oakland County Megacast.